Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. I'm John Norgrove. This is Julie Norgrove. And, we're here to talk about witchy stuff in this podcast format. If you are watching this, business stuff out of the way first. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and do all whatever that stuff is that we're supposed to tell you to do. And if you're listening to this on your podcast network of choice, it would be super dope if you subscribed to us and left us a review so we know that you exist. Because the statistics for podcasts is make-believe. I don't know if there are 4 of you listening, or 24 of you listening, or 400 of you listening, and I actually don't even know how to learn how to know that. So, yeah, it's a mystery on the internet, I guess. I don't know, podcasts are like sci-fi.
So until then, we know we have 3 listeners.
Hello, our 3 listeners.
Hello, 3 listeners.
If you would like to support stuff like this, that's fun and witchy and educational and such like that, as well as like chit chat with us about witchy stuff, we have a Patreon. We have a Horn and Cauldron podcast tier where you gain access to our Book of Shadows pages, as well as our I make like little cell phone backgrounds, and you have access to our Discord so you can chat with us. I'm learning how Discord works. It's fun, I guess. I sound like I'm so old, but
and
yeah.
I know how to do all this stuff.
You know, and what's even worse is that she might be the older one who knows how to do this stuff better, but I am way better at computers. I'm just better at like old person computer stuff. Like, you need a dope Excel document, you need software fixed. Like, that's...
What about an Ethernet cable? Can you help me with an Ethernet cable?
You don't even know about Ethernet cables, man. Get out of here with that.
I mean, I do, but now I'm afraid that you're going to tell me
She knows that it knows that it's a thing, but that's it. Yeah. Yeah, don't worry. I'm tech support, but like young person stuff is whatever. We have TikToks too, but I don't do it very often because, again, I don't get it. I don't know. It's like a weird elder millennial thing. Whatever. Anywho, support us on Patreon if you want more fun witchy stuff like that. We also have a stakeholders tier because of all the stakes, like meat, and not investments, because you would be investing in bullshit. But when you're in the stakeholder tier, we have a once a month hangout at the beginning of the month, and we just hang out and chit chat. What's up? Shout out to our stakeholders friends
for a couple of hours.
Yeah. So shout out to our Patreons and what is that? Alexa, Alex, and Alan and Miranda.
Yes, and you're forgetting other people too.
And there's 2 others. Oh my god, I just lost their names because I messed up on the Alex Allen thing.
Oh,
damn.
You're terrible.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do it in post. No, there is no post. I'm not that good. I edit these and I'm not that good. We'll read everybody's name later because, like we found out last time, I can't access those on my cell phone for fuck all knows what reason. Anywho, let's get into this witchy stuff. Today we are doing a deep dive into Persephone. And
right.
Like I say a bajillion times in all of these, this is a dope, safe space that's open and friendly. If you're an asshole, gently
go away.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Fuck off, deaf.
We don't need jerk faces here.
No, there's no jerks here. This is a jerk-free zone. I'm the only jerk allowed here. And yeah. Also, because I get to say this now, if we're saying something wrong, correct us, right? Like, I'm from California. I know how my education worked. If I'm saying something wrong, I say regular English words wrong sometimes.
And we do our best to research how to say things in what other language it's coming from.
That doesn't mean that's right.
I mean, we're relying on the internet for that information, so please keep in mind that Abraham Lincoln said not to trust everything you read on the internet. And I'm going to say, don't trust anything you hear either. So if we said something wrong, don't be a dick about it. Just help us out, man. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Tell us what you really think or whatever. So, whomst the fuck is Persephone?
So Persephone is commonly known as Kore. She is the Greek goddess of grain, fertility, immortality, spring, nature, rebirth, resurrection, the dead. She's also a popular patron goddess for people who have bipolar disease and a few other mental disorders. I don't really want to say illnesses, but like disorders,
yeah.
as well as being the mistress of curses and queen of the underworld. So she's got a bunch of really dope titles that I had no idea existed before this particular episode. So I had a lot of fun getting into this, as I always do. For our like 3 listeners, you know how much I love my history side of things. So the first part of that interesting history is there's a ton of variants of her name. So she was called at varying times in ancient Mediterranean history, as well as different areas, a lot of different things. Some of them were like Persephata, Persephone, Persephassa. Probably saying some of those wrong. Sorry, again, please correct me, among other things. What's interesting about this is the variants of her name indicate that her name probably originated before the ancient Greek language. So right now, modern Greek language, right? And then when we're looking at stuff from back in the like Colosseum and like temple times, we're looking we're looking at the ancient Greek language. Those are the first 2 things off the top of my head. It's absurd. I was like, what would be ancient Greek? And I was like, who would be the name? And then I was like, I can't think of any of these names. It was just immediate. Anyway, so her name, the origins of it are likely from the Proto-Greek and the Proto-Indo-European times. And that means that her name could be more than 4,000 years old, because the ancient Greek language popped up around 2000 BC.
Yeah, well, and so the thing is, and there are significantly more pro people out there, like YouTube this, but there are a number of Greek deities that were functionally just like older deities that the Greeks are like, pretty gangster. We also have that with the same exact name.
And then the Romans were like,
I don't know if you knew that.
And
then the Romans were like, we have that, but different name. Right?
And then the Christians were like,
and then everybody
we have
else
that,
just kept
but
doing
it's
that
all
because
the same person.
because that's what they learned. So a lot of the time, especially with regard to like Greek gods and goddesses, you find that anciently it was like something else, or sometimes it was just like a mystery cult. It was just like, oh, this was like a goddess of death mystery cult that turned into this, and after like 1,000 years or 2,000 years, we got basically Persephone, and then that shit lasted for like a bit of time, and then it turned into some other stuff, and it just kept kind of rolling like that. So a lot of these gods, once you get far enough back, it's all sort of like wispy connective tissue, and not like, you know, like this was this, and then it was this, and then it was this. You know?
And there's not a lot of information. Like, the further back you go, obviously, the less information there is. But it's like, we just watched a video from a YouTube channel called Kurzgesagt, which talked about dinosaurs.
Also, if you don't watch Kurzgesagt, watch them. Holy shit. Awesome art. Like, literally no connection at all. We just love them and have forever. Like, awesome art. Super informative. I mean, they basically just brought up the fact that, like, every dinosaur we've ever looked at in media has been wrong. Because we have no clue, like, at all. We know, like, a couple where we found, like feathers, but no, we don't know.
Yeah. And they were talking about in this video that, like, there were probably so many more different species that lived back in the dinosaur times because of, well, just the way that, like, the number of species works on this planet. But the thing that's interesting about it is they were like, this is how fossils are made, and this is the things that can take away from fossils. And basically they were like, there's a ton of different species of things that lived that just don't exist in the fossil record. And really, when it comes to all of that sort of stuff, like, a lot of this ancient knowledge just didn't exist in the record. Like, if you think about it, like, we don't have books really from back then.
Books.
Like, we have carvings, we have art, you know, there are papyrus scrolls, although I'll be honest, I have no idea how far back those go, because I haven't had the chance to really delve into that yet. And all of that sort of thing. So there's not a lot of that information. Yeah.
There's that sweet bowl of Babylonian stones that look like breakfast cereal, but, like, I don't know what that is.
Tasty Babylonian breakfast
it's
cereal.
forbidden breakfast. Also, that is not even close to how you spell that. Yeah, I'm calling you out on that. That's not how you spell a word that I'm definitely pronouncing wrong.
So we will put a link to the Curse Kazakh video in the
nothing
show
to do
notes
with witchy
for you.
stuff. It's just
nothing
super
to do with
informative.
that.
Like,
and
learn you some good knowledge.
I typed a little, like, note in the show notes for it, and I do not know how to spell off the top of my head Curse Kazakh. I'm really good at spelling in the English language, but when it comes to other languages, oh, good luck. And I did not do well. So if you want to guess how I spelled that in the comments, or hit us up on social media,
good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. All right, what's up?
Anyway, so Persephone, the idea behind her name being so old and probably having a Proto-Greek or Proto-Indo-European tie to it is that scholars think that it was too hard for the ancient Greeks to pronounce. So it just changed throughout the areas, which is interesting because I think it's probably more along the lines of what you had said, where it's just probably like a variety of different places and it was this thing and then it became this thing and it morphed into the other thing.
It's the thing with language is that not only do you have accents relative to areas, like we're from California, obviously. You can hear it in the way that we talk. But, like, people in Southern California talk different than us. And that's not even that far. Well, I mean, I guess that's not that far. It's like 8 hours away. But, like, what about, like, a Texas accent? Or what about, like, a Florida accent? Or, like, a New York accent? Or, like a Kentucky accent? Or a Boston accent? Or, like, a Canadian accent? Or, like, a Mexico accent? Or, like, Brazil? Or England? I mean, so, like, obviously, the further away you get, the more differentiated words not only just sound, regardless of how it's spelled, right? But you also have like local colloquialisms based around just any series of historical shits you can think of, right? Yeah. Like the one that always comes to mind is the whole like Coke, Cola, soda, pop, like whichever one you call soda, right? For me, it's soda. Right? Because Coca-Cola is a brand and soda is like the fizzy sugar beverage that's definitely going to kill me one day. Or
at least give you the beatus.
Or at least give me the beatus. You know, brown people problems. But like, is it that accent-wise somebody's calling it pop instead of soda? Or is it just because, like, for whatever reason, pop stuck with them and soda stuck with us and it doesn't fucking matter, right? So, like, when you think about it that way, if, like, I went to a place and didn't enunciate my words properly as well or whatever, had a differential accent so I could or could not frame words in the same way that they could, right? They would say a word in a different way than, like, let's say my people back at home would say a word when I'm trying to spread this by word of mouth, which a lot of stuff was spread by word of mouth, right? So a lot of times when you start getting these, like, differential names, you either have the, like, I know your people have this guy over here, but, like, really it's our guy. So you can call it both, and then it just kind of, like, mushes together and creates a name. Or it's just that, like, whatever priest swung by and was like, have you guys met Persephone? And they're like, I can't make that noise with my face. What's the closest noise that we can make to that with our face? And then that's what that was called there, right? So that's the thing is that, like, language sort of evolves. It's the same thing with I'm a weird stickler about pronouncing things in very particular ways, but also I fully understand that, like, people say things weird, and I on purpose say some shit weird.
Thanks to you, I can no longer say the word tomato without, like, thinking about it. I have to say the word tomate.
Yeah, well, that's just because I'm lazy and it makes me sound like a douche to call it a tomate. Hey, what do you want, like a tomate? That's just, I don't know what that's from. That's just me being an asshat.
That's Def Crayo.
But, like, yeah, whatever's clever, guys. Whatever's clev. Our language is shit. Is really the TLDR on that one.
So anyway,
whatever, words are sounded weird. Words sounded weird.
So Persephone had a ton of titles. I'm just gonna cold segue away.
Get away.
I'm just gonna ignore it. So Persephone had a ton of titles, and most of her titles that I was able to find actually have to do with her position as Queen of the Underworld. But she had different titles depending on what aspect of Persephone you were looking for, and we saw a lot of this with Isis as well, where you have multiple aspects of a god or a goddess, and they're sort of honing in on one of them. So when Persephone was being referred to as a vegetation goddess. She was most commonly called Kore. And when she was being called the underworld goddess, she was called a variety of different things. But some of my favorites are Mistress of Curses and Dreaded Persephone. Of course, Queen of the Underworld is a title of hers. She was also called Despoina, which stands for the mistress. People were very hesitant to actually say her name as if she was some sort of Beetlejuice-like figure, and something would happen if you basically said her name too many times. Really, when you think about it, that's not too surprising, because as being goddess of death,
I have to say it, Beetlejeezy. Continue.
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to. Sometimes I just have to say words wrong. It's one of my many crazies.
So.
Yeah. Going over there, looking at me, or calling on Beetlejeezy. You know what I'm talking about? You're gonna remember that one wrong too.
You're gonna ruin that for me too. At least for the star, maybe not for the Michael Keaton. So when so it's really not that surprising that people wanted a whole bunch of epithets for her, or titles for her to refer to her by, for the underworld / Queen of the Dead type of thing. Because when you think about it, most people are afraid of death. So by saying her name, maybe you're going to conjure her up like Beetlejuice or Candyman, and now you're dead. Or you're gonna attract her attention and
Beetlejuice or Candyman.
or you're gonna attract her attention, and that may not end well for you. Of course, maybe it will, but people were very afraid of that. Yeah. She was also called the goddess, or in part with her mother Demeter, she was also called the goddesses. There's a lot that has to do with the Eleusinian mysteries that kind of goes into that, but there's most of the epithets out there are to basically avoid calling her name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm my favorite is the Dread Pirate Persephone over here. So
I really love Dreaded Persephone.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Now I have to make an art with Persephone and a pirate hat and like maybe an eye patch or something. So,
yeah, man, that would be
Dread
cool.
Pirate Persephone.
So, as far as iconography goes, statues of her are often shown when she is like carrying a sheaf or like a bundle of grain or a scepter or a box. However, in most art, especially art that happened in the Renaissance going forwards, she is commonly shown in the abduction myth, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's really the most common thing that people seem to think of her, which honestly is kind of too bad, because she's got some pretty rad stories. Yeah. And to judge her by just that singular story is kind of a shame. So Persephone's parents were Zeus and Demeter. Or, if you follow the Orphic tradition, Zeus and Rhea, who was a Titan. And that's just pretty par for the course for all that Greek mythology stuff, where they have different parents or siblings or children, depending on the particular tradition we're looking at. If you want more information about that sort of thing, we talk a little bit more in depth about that in the Olympian Gods episode, the family tree. So we've got some more there. Now, Persephone had a ton of siblings because Zeus was her father on both sides. So literally anyone who was fathered by Zeus would be her sibling. There is not enough room in my notes, and there is not enough time for this podcast for me to be able to list all of those names.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. As far as consorts go, she really only had one consort, and that's Hades. And again, we'll come back to that when we talk about the abduction myth. I don't want to get too off track yet. As far as children go, if you follow the Orphic tradition, she is the mother of Dionysus. If you don't follow the Orphic tradition, sometimes she is considered as being a consort with Dionysus, but honestly, to me, that seems like a bit more fanfic based on some of the research that I got into. But if that's your headcanon shipping, go for it. I don't care. I'm not going to stop you. She also had a child named Melanoe. She is Persephone's child with Zeus. Yes, I know, it's her father. We're not commenting on that stuff. And Melanoe is the goddess of nightmares and the bringer of madness. So basically, she's the goddess of craziness, which I think is pretty dope. And she was the foster mother and possibly lover, but I didn't really find any information that gave this like credit as being also lover to Adonis, who was one of Aphrodite's consorts. So that's what her family looks like. And as far as the abduction myth goes, I'd be surprised if you don't already know it, but if you don't, I will give you the quick version. Yeah. So Hades was in love with Persephone. He went to his brother Zeus and was like, hey, I'm really into her. Can I like marry her or something? And Zeus was like, go for it. So Hades decided to pop up and abduct her because Demeter was not likely to let Persephone go to the underworld with Hades because he was kind of like this goth kid outcast. And Persephone was out picking flowers in a field, maybe with friends, maybe by herself, maybe in various places of the world, depending on what kind of myth you're reading. And Hades came up through a crack in the earth to take her to the underworld. And when that crack in the earth opened up, there was a farmer that had some pigs, and those pigs also fell in the cavern. That'll be important later. And so Demeter found out that Persephone was taken, was whooshed away, and she was super upset, and she, depending on the myth, either neglects the earth and all of its plants, because Demeter is also a vegetation goddess, basically the goddess of the harvest. And Demeter is like, no, the earth can't grow food until I get my daughter back. So everybody was fine with that as gods until all of a sudden all of their worshipers were like, please, we're dying, we're hungry. And then they finally had like a little come to Jesus talk with Demeter, and they were like, hey, you can't, this isn't cool. You can't do this. You have to like let the earth go back. And at some point in time during this, Helios, the sun god, tells Demeter that he saw Hades grab Persephone and then go under the earth. And because of these sort of two things, Zeus was like, dude, you like gotta let her go back, or tells Hermes to like go and get her back. So it turns out that Persephone, while in the underworld, ate a few pomegranate seeds, each seed signifying the number of months in the year that she would have to stay underground, because once you eat the food of the dead, you cannot come back from that. You have to at least stay partially dead.
Well,
partially in the underworld.
Yeah.
So Persephone comes back, but only for a certain number of months in the year. And when she is back, the earth is lush and green and has life. And then when she goes away, Demeter is super sad again and then forbids the earth to grow until her daughter returns. So that is the basic story of the abduction myth. There's a ton of controversy about this.
Well, and there's like a ton of different versions of this abduction myth, right? Mm-hmm. With regard to like the whys and the hows of it. I mean, in some of them, like Hades is like steepled fingers, lightning crack, maniacally evil.
Yeah.
And in some of these, Hades is just like, oh, I should totally talk to this chick. And then like they disappear and she has dinner with him, and apparently that shit was a trick. Like, trickster god. And sometimes it's like totally a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though it's framed as an abduction, it was like totally a misunderstanding. So, and again, there's a lot of emotions built up into all of these stories. So your story, we're not like devaluing yours. In fact, if you know a different version of any of these myths, share that with us. That sounds gangster.
Yes. In fact, there are some cults that believe that Persephone and Hades fell in love prior to this because they would have seen each other wandering about Mount Olympus, like, for like Thanksgiving or whatever. They didn't have Thanksgiving.
Sure.
But, they would have seen each other in that like circle of divine hangouts, basically. And that Persephone and Hades fell in love and then made a plan for her to be spirited away because they knew that Demeter wouldn't permit her to be with Hades for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. Which isn't an abduction. That's just...
Yeah, personally for me, I look at it as Demeter is like super codependent, like controlling mom that like doesn't want her daughter out of the way, and her like hot popular girl daughter fell in love with like the outcast goth kid.
The goth underworld kid. And then this was their plan to elope. That's just my personal headcanon. I mean, that sounds like a paranormal teen romance.
It does sound like a paranormal teen romance, and I'm into it.
Whatever.
And that is actually based on a poem from Homer, who was an ancient Greek writer and not just a Simpsons dude. And it said that Hades secretly gave Persephone sweet pomegranate seeds to eat, taking care for himself that she might not remain continually with grave, dark-robed Demeter. So that to me is the thing that sticks out.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of what your beliefs are with this myth, that's your opinion, and there's nothing wrong with your opinion.
Yeah.
If your opinion differs from mine or his or the next person's, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
There does not need to be fighting or anything like that.
People can have different interpretations of the exact same thing. I mean, like I don't know what education system you went through, but there was a bunch of shit I was taught that was like 100% true that I turned like 20 and was like, none of this shit is true.
Well, yeah.
How did I learn this? So wrong. And they're like, we all thought it. And then, like, one person was like, that's dumb. And we're all like, that is dumb.
Now, at its core, though, this myth really exists not to make the argument of elopement or abduction, but to try and explain the changing of the seasons. Like, why would ancient people think that the earth, this goddess that's going to protect them and love them and care for them, is going to basically intentionally starve its people for a few months every year?
Yeah.
Like, they have to explain that somehow, and this has just happened to be how they do
Gaia
it.
being like a dick for 4 months.
Basically, yeah.
You know?
So there isn't a ton of writing out there about Persephone, but that's because a ton of the information about how to worship Persephone is about secret festivals? Yeah, secret festivals.
Secret Persephone cult stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. Okay, so we got the list, patrons. So we're just gonna give a shout out to Alan, Helena, Mackenzie, Alexa, and Miranda.
Which means that we have 5. 5!
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm gonna do that though. Like that. All right, so secret Persephone worship cults.
Yes.
What's up? What's the word?
So Persephone had a ton of festivals dedicated to her, at least either in whole or in part, depending on her relationship with her mother. So a historian in the earlier. Nope. I was going to say in the earlier part of this century, and I was like, nope, we're already in this century. So a historian in the previous century.
In the 1900s.
Yes, in the 1900s. I don't remember if it was in the 70s or in the early, or like 1912. It doesn't matter. A historian named Walter Buckert believed that during celebrations for Persephone, participants would dance wildly, and a statue of Persephone would ascend from a hole in the floor and then hover above the dancers, symbolizing both her ascent from the underworld and the rebirth of plants. And they would drink essentially hallucinogenic drinks and just party for 3 days like this. And that sort of follows the idea behind a lot of the different celebrations that she had. They kind of all tend to be the same, although there are some differences between them.
3 days long and involving a bunch of hallucinogens?
Yeah.
Well, that's gangster.
And ecstatic dancing. So in the Orphic tradition, Persephone was one of the most important deities, and she was particularly venerated for the goddess of the underworld, goddess of the dead kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was very common that people would carry gold leaves, usually a leaf of a plant that had something to do with the underworld, like a bay or a willow or something along those lines, and they would be painted in gold, and on them they would basically write stuff beseeching Persephone to treat the dead to a happy afterlife, which is pretty interesting. And they would, bury however many they were able to with a deceased person, hoping that Persephone would basically lead them to what is called the sacred meadows and groves of Persephone. So she had some pretty dope afterlife digs apparently too. Now, the first of her festivals we're going to talk about is Stenia. And Stenia was held 3 days before the start of Thesmorphia, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And Stenia was a festival, not even really a festival, but more of like a fasting and like quiet time before the party, like the calm before the storm. Yeah. And it was only women, and it was considered a purification ritual.
You got to get yourself in the right place to party that hard.
Basically, yes. So they had ritual fasting and mourning. The mourning was essentially like Persephone's gone. We're going to be upset about this for a variety of different reasons. Now, once Stenia was over, Thesmorphia began. And Thesmorphia was also celebrated for 3 days. So if you were a lady and you were into both of these, you could be partying like this for 6 whole days.
Thesmophoria?
Thesmophoria.
Yeah, Thesmorphoria.
Yeah, I may have said that wrong.
Yeah, Thesmophoria.
Yeah. So this is actually one of the oldest ancient Greek festivals, like, out there. Mm-hmm. This was celebrated dating all the way back to the 11th century BCE. So that's more than 3,000 years that this was celebrated. Well, the beginning of this celebration began. And the dates were different for this festival, depending on where you were and what time you lived in. So you could celebrate this festival on the first new moon after the winter solstice, which the next one is January 2nd, 2022. Or you could celebrate this one in the first new moon that falls in between late October and early November. And that next date is November 5th. 2021, so it's coming right up.
Yeah.
And the reason why these are tied to new moons is because the Greeks mostly followed a lunar calendar, and I went way down far the rabbit hole with this one and was trying to figure out dates because there's so many festivals for her that I kind of understand how to read an ancient Athenian calendar, which is like weird flex, but okay. Now
weird flex.
Sometimes Thesmorphia was included. Thesmophoria, thank you.
Thesmorphoria.
I'm going to probably say that wrong 5 more times. It's because we were just talking about pronouncing stuff. I totally jinxed us.
Yeah?
No, I'm not going to lie. That happens every time. So...
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Blame Beetlejuice for it.
Oh.
Yeah. You thought I was going to forget that. It's now forever.
I'm going to throw a tomato at you.
I know. Welcome to speaking whatever weird, messed up, brain damaged language Jonathan speaks. Yeah, you're fucking welcome, bro.
There's a lot of sources that say that this festival was for women only, but there is also an interesting subset of information that posits that sometimes men were in fact included in this particular festival, and this is separate from the mysteries, mind you. But it is thought that Persephone had some male priests, and any man that would have been, inducted as a priest into her worship cult stuff would be invited to this and would take place in this. But we don't really have information about how many or who or how, or if there's some sort of prerequisites associated with it. It's just sort of an interesting side note there. Now, Thesmophoria also had ritual fasting and mourning and also praying for fertility, all common themes of this. We're kind of hitting both sides of that dark side, light side sort of thing. Typically, in the olden times, the first day of the 3-day thing was for ritual fasting. But that kind of seems like that's if you weren't also following Stenia. And then after that, it was party time. First day, setting up your tent, fasting because you don't have time. The second 2 days, party time, let's go. Now... Hallucinogens
hit way harder when you haven't ate anything, is what that sounds like to me.
It's super true, yes.
But whatever.
So... They would ritually sacrifice a cow, most typically a bull, but it seems to me like that just sort of happened because it's a large amount of food for a large party.
Yeah.
As opposed to what actually seems to be part of the ritual is ritually sacrificing pigs. Now, remember I said it would be important that those pigs that fell down into the earth when Hades came to get Persephone? This is that time. So pigs were ritually sacrificed after being thrown into a quote-unquote chasm. Now, sometimes this is a literal chasm, and this would kill the pigs. And then they would later retrieve the partially decomposed bodies and then process them in a specific manner, and then bury them in the fields, using them essentially as fertilizer. Now, sometimes the chasm is a small trough cut into the earth, and they sort of toss the pigs in there as a holding thing.
To toss that pig in there to cook that shit.
There is also that.
That sounds like a pit fire pig, and those are delicious.
Now, sometimes they also just like tossed them in there to keep them in one place so that they could then cook them and eat them later. Totally. So there's sort of three ways that goes. It was also super common to have loaves of bread. So we're basically talking like pulled pork sandwiches for this party, which I am down for.
Ancient Greek pulled pork sandwiches and hallucinogens to worship a death goddess. I'm super into this.
Now, it was a little strange to me to learn, but pomegranates were typically avoided during this festival, even though they are the main thing that's associated with Persephone, especially modernly.
Oh, that makes sense, though. When you think about the pomegranates are the thing that trapped her, I mean, if you're going to celebrate her, you got to risk getting trapped?
Well, it wasn't about risking getting trapped. It was more about pissing off Demeter. Because seeing a pomegranate, Demeter would be like, "You're the reason my daughter can't stay with me all the time."
Well, and you're doing this in winter when she's already pissed off, so like, why piss her off twice, right?
Or at the beginning of winter when she's about ready to leave. So that is the second of 4 of her festivals that we're going to talk about. The next one is actually the Eleusinian Mysteries. We talked a little bit about mysteries when we talked about Aphrodite and a little bit about Isis. Now, the mysteries, because Persephone has been worshipped for so long, there's so much out there. So part of this is some things happened at different points in time, right? So the Romans in particular were very interested in secret cults, very into secret cults. I don't know why, they just were. And publicly,
that's why. It's super obvious.
You say as a member of a secret cult.
They're super dumb.
So publicly, the Eleusinian Greater Mystery was celebrated and called Chorus Katagogi. And you want to look at that one?
Yeah, where are you seeing this word? Yeah, that's probably right.
I did my best.
Yeah.
I don't actually
I belong
speak
to
ancient
a secret group within a secret group.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, secret group inception.
Secret group squared.
Yeah.
So the Eleusinian Mysteries.
So secret.
So the Eleusinian Mysteries is kind of like this weird thing, but basically we're going to talk about 2 of them. We're going to talk about what I'm going to call the Greater Mystery, which is the main festival of the 2 for the mysteries. And then we're going to talk about the Lesser Mysteries, which is the less common, like, junior level of this festival.
Yeah.
So the Eleusinian Mysteries...
The Boy Scouts of Eleusinian Mysteries.
It would be Cub Scouts. Get it right. So they were
celebrating. Scouts the younger ones of Boy Scouts? I don't know.
Yes, Cub Scouts are the younger ones.
I was never one of
I was an honorary Cub Scout and an honorary Boy Scout.
I never did any of that stuff. Yeah. I just went into the woods. Like a country person.
You still do that.
That's fair. Well, we own woods now. So.
Sometimes you just disappear into them.
I guess. I got stuff to do. I got wood stuff to do.
Wood
Mysterious redwood stuff to do. Shit. Yeah. Secret cult cube, bro. You don't know. Damn.
I just figure sometimes you get lost after needing to go pee in the woods.
I definitely don't get lost. I can see the house.
I know. We don't live that far in the middle of the woods.
Well, it's not that it's not plausible to get lost. It's
depending on which
way
you go.
Lost.
Yeah. So the Eleusinian Greater Mysteries were celebrated at the start of the new moon in late September, early October, which actually just passed for this year. That would have been October 6th of this year, and next year that will be September 26th of 2022. And the Eleusinian Mysteries were celebrated longer than most festivals. That's a week. So that's 7 days. And we are now up to a total of, if you decided to follow all of Persephone's things, you're up to 11 days of festivalry now.
Festivity is the word she's looking for.
No, guys. I wanted festivalry. We've talked about making up words. I'm making up words. So the mystery...
I'm not making words up. I'm just pronouncing them dumb.
There's
a difference.
You do both. So that's wrong.
That's not.
You're wrong.
That's not wrong.
Yeah.
All of the words I make up, 100% real words.
No. That's untrue.
Was that too confusing?
No, stop it.
All these made up words, 100% real, not made up. Don't worry about it. Unsecret words. Secrets.
Anyway, the Greater Eleusinian Mysteries honored both Demeter and Persephone, and they mimicked Persephone's descent into the underworld. So this one is tricky because it is a secret cult, so there's not a lot of information about this, and most of the accounts that we have are from late Christian sources. Haha, Christianization of Europe. If you're playing the drinking game, you get to drink now, because I basically talk about it in every episode, not on purpose, it just happens that way.
Well, I mean, it's a thing, historically, that we have to deal with.
It is. Yes. So there's not a whole lot that's earlier than this, and there certainly isn't really anything after. But from late Christian sources, we can learn, or early Christian sources, we can learn that the initiate to the mysteries is first ritually bathed, and then they fast, and then they toss a piglet in a trench. We don't know what kind of trench. One of those three options we previously discussed. And then they imitate Demeter looking for Persephone, and then they enter into the initiation hall.
Okay.
So after that, the details get way more fuzzy. We think that maybe this first part kind of takes like a day or so, but again, we don't know. Yeah. So after they enter the initiation hall, we're told that there are offerings and that the initiates see, quote unquote, a male organ. Everything that I found as far as research for this used quote unquote a male organ. Everything, all the way back, everybody was afraid to say something phallic or anything other than a male organ, which That's really weird. Makes me wonder what words they originally used in this text.
What was this translated out of, where they're just like, listen, that's a real descriptive way to use an
They were like,
word. We're not going to do
first
that.
They would fast, and then they throw a pig in a hole, and then they would see a giant dong.
No, first you clean, then you fast, then you hole a pig, then you go into a room, secret dongs, then you do some worship stuff.
Yeah. You also would see an ear of grain. It seems like colloquially, maybe an ear of grain was used as
maybe the ear of grain a dong?
Phallic symbol. Yeah. We're not really sure. And then they are shown an image of Persephone in blinding light. So it's really meant to like invoke a very like religious kind of experience.
How did the ancient people blindingly light a Persephone thing? I mean, in my mind, there's just like, they're like, all right, are you ready to see Persephone? And you're like, yeah. And they open a door and it's just that whole room's on fire. And they're just like, did you see her? And you're like, yeah. Should we address that? And they're like, no. We're not done. We still got a couple more days.
I'm going to remind you of several movies that use mirrors.
Series of mirrors?
A series of mirrors.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes they just have a kid named Aziz
they didn't
applying
know,
light.
But before being shown the image of Persephone in blinding light, you were essentially in total, almost complete darkness.
So they just had like a painting on a window.
Yeah,
and they're just
right.
like,
and
look
they just,
outside.
Like,
they just like pull the curtain up, and you're just like, it's so bright. And they're like, that's how light and dark work. But
yeah, that very well may be it. So then it seems like to me, as a modern person reading this and trying to interpolate it, that there is additional things happening in between here and there.
Yeah.
But basically, after this moment, they're no longer considered an initiate, and then they can go forth to feast. They're also promised a happy afterlife and a good place in the sacred meadows and groves of Persephone. So that's really the Eleusinian mysteries, like in a nutshell.
Sure.
And it seems like this was both attended by men and women, as opposed to some of the older previous festivals where the word is that it was probably mostly women. So that's the Greater Eleusinian Mysteries. Now, the idea behind it was that only people who were like actually Greek or actually like from the place where the mysteries were being held could go to the mysteries there. So they decided to create an additional one. Now we have the lesser mysteries. The lesser mysteries were publicly celebrated as Anthesphoria, and they took place during a different time of the year. But the idea behind them was that like if you weren't like born from here and you wanted to participate in this, you could go to these instead.
Sure.
And or maybe also you needed to do these before going into the greater mysteries. Again, Romans really liked secret cults, so I wouldn't be so well, and I know this is Greek, right? But it all kind of like mishmashes together. It's a very popular thing to have secret cults back in the Mediterranean. And why, when you have one secret cult, why not two? So
yeah, well, and I mean, like, if your secret cult was like no dudes, then like dudes would make a pretend secret version, or like no ladies, and then like ladies would make like a pretend secret version, or if they're like nobody that's Phoenician, and then the Phoenicians have to make like a secret version, or like whatever, right? So like it makes sense that it like inevitably evolved into another thing, and that's assuming that it wasn't that like there were a bunch of Persephone secret cults. There was just like a bunch of Persephone cults. And like the Eleusinians were the ones that were just like, our cult is best cult. And everybody else was just like, I mean, our cults are also dope, but the Eleusinians are the ones that got to write the book. So when people write now, like, let's talk about secret cults, the Eleusinians are like, we have a Persephone cult, tell you nothing about it. Everybody else has a Persephone cult, lesser cult, not as good as our cult.
And somebody like whispered to another guy, was like, hey, I hear their cult has a huge schlong in it.
Yeah, they're like, hey, that cult, 3-foot corn on the cob. You know what I'm talking about? You're like, what? And they're like, you know, blinding light, 3-foot corn on the cob. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to write any of that down. You know what? The Eleusinians have a secret cult. It wasn't a secret, but every time they talked about it, everybody was like, I don't want to fucking hear what you do on a Tuesday in November. That shit's weird, dog. Shut it down. So, I mean, that's what that sounds like to me. What do I know?
Oh man. Okay, so
some of these lesser cults, bro.
So the greater Eleusinian mysteries take place at the beginning of fall and the end of the harvest season. So can you guess when the lesser mysteries start?
I mean, I can read it. And I already read it.
Oh, yeah. That's no fun.
It wasn't on purpose. It's just that I see things and I read them.
Yeah, I know. I do that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would assume the opposite end of the spectrum. So if one is in fall, the other must be in spring.
That's right.
Yeah, but again, also, I mean, if the cool kids are doing their club at fall festival, at the fall dance, then the like other kids are gonna try and take over the spring fling. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty much, yeah. So
is that the point of the Revenge of the Nerds books, movies? I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know that they're books.
I said books, and I don't know why. I know their movies. I've seen them a million times.
Man, we are wild tonight.
Whatever, man.
We just finished watching Squid Game, y'all, and our brains are in a place.
So
yeah, we are in a place. So anyway, the lesser mysteries were celebrated during the new moon that falls in late February to early March. The next one of those that we're going to see is March 2nd, 2022. And this, again, we don't have a lot of information about, but all the information that we have indicates that it's pretty similar to the greater mysteries, only there's probably less blinding light.
Standard quality light.
Standard
ear of corn, not big dong ear of corn.
Yeah.
And probably less clean, maybe, or like less wandering or whatever. I mean, honestly, if Demeter's coming back, I feel like pomegranates for everybody, right? Because then they're like, oh, you can't eat pomegranates, it might upset Demeter. And you're just like, I mean, but it's coming back, so she's probably cool. You can eat pomegranates again, that shit's delicious, right?
They are delicious, yeah.
So
in this one, kind of the main thing, there's really like two main things about this lesser mysteries, and that's that the candidates were taught about the two goddesses and all of their related information, as well as the process behind the greater mysteries. So this was like a pre-mystery mystery. And this also really honored Persephone's ascent from the underworld, which means purification, renewal, flowers, rebirth, zombie Jesus stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit early for Easter, but y'all get the idea.
So it's a Scooby-Doo mystery. It's less mysterious.
I mean, those crazy kids.
Yeah, well, it's lesser. It's in the name. They did that on purpose. I'm just saying the Eleusinians wrote the book, guys. Let's get it in perspective.
Now, we don't have a specific time frame for how long the Lesser Mysteries were celebrated for, but like with most festivals from this period in time and this time, it would have probably been 3 days. So if you're keeping count, that is...
Well, especially if you're doing it in and around a new or full moon, 3 is like the easiest number to do it with.
Well, really, the new and the full moon
like,
kind of happens
there's
for
no
3
moon.
days.
First party night. There's still no moon. Second party night. Third party night. Hey guys, that moon hasn't come back yet. Is it supposed to come back?
And they're like, it's there. Time to go home.
Or is it the drugs? And somebody's like, no. Corn and lights. Don't worry about it. And then, the next day it's back, so you're fine.
Yeah. So we're up to, we had 3 days for Stenia. We had 3 days for Thesmophoria. We had 7 days for the Greater Mysteries. And now we've got another 3 days for the Lesser Mysteries. So math that for me.
Oh, I was not paying that much attention to what you just said. Yeah, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to be listening? This is for them.
You were 100% looking at me.
Yeah. I'm mostly petting the dog. My eyes might be going this way, but I'm not participating in that. Yeah. I don't know. 23? 17?
No.
It's probably 17. I'm going to go with 17.
It is 17.
Is it really? Did I just guess that right?
Wait, no, it's 16.
Oh, okay.
I did that math wrong. I'm not great at math.
Okay. Well, I wasn't paying attention and I guessed. So, closest without being under? No, it's closest without going over. I didn't win that prize, guys. It's all right.
No, you did not.
Yeah. We're back. For real this time. The last time, fucking dogs. Making noises with stuff. But, yeah. Anywho. So, Persephone, what's up?
Yeah, so, we're going to talk about some spells.
Oh, okay. We're done with all that stuff.
Yeah, we're done with knowledge.
Yeah,
no more of that.
So, some secret cults, some not as secret cults, whatever, spring and fall.
A variable number of days of festivaling.
16, it was 16 days.
Yeah, it was 16 days. So, we've got 2 spells for you, like usual. I was trying to add that up in my head as we were talking, and I lost count like 3 times. I was
I totally didn't even.
If the first one
you were
is 3,
saying numbers,
and then the second one was 3,
not participating in the conversation,
and then the next one is 7, and I was like, okay, what's 6 plus 7? 11? And then I'm like, no, that's not right. And I'm like, 13. Okay, 13. What? And then I would lose count, and I'd be like,
6 plus 7 is just 6 and 6 and 1, and 6 and 6 is 12, and 12 and 1 is 13.
I know. This is why you're the mathy one. This is why I'm the pretty one.
That's addition.
You're
it's not
the mathy one.
This is just counting, dog. This is just counting, but with more steps. Theoretically, less steps, but I mean, it depends on how you count. Whatever.
Anyway, so these spells that were written don't have any connection to any historical or traditional Hellenistic or otherwise secret cult sort of things.
Yeah.
And the first one is an invocation for Persephone. So this is something you're going to want to use if you want to invoke her for any sort of a variety.
So before we get into these, few things. One, these are just spells all the spells that we talk about are spells that we have made. We shouldn't have to say that every time, but we're going to because people are the internet, whatever.
Also maybe we get new listeners.
I get it.
We went from 3 to 5. Who knows?
I get it. But also, do you worship Persephone?
I don't actively worship her, but her and I have had some times where I've called upon her for a variety of things.
Okay. Okay,
but
I don't really do any of that Greek stuff.
I don't regularly worship her. Okay. I do sometimes if the situation makes sense. However, I think that she is dope AF, and I totally dig her girl boss energy. Kind of thing, and the whole aesthetic of it.
Yeah. I feel like of Greek stuff, which I don't really do Greek stuff, right? I primarily do Norse stuff, but Hades and Persephone are probably like 2 of my main gangsters. If I'm gonna side with Greek stuff, I'm gonna choose Hades or Persephone or
we low-key did
Dionysus.
A Hades and Persephone cosplay for a friend's wedding, your sister's wedding. Yeah.
Oh yeah, kind of. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It wasn't on purpose. It just ended up that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that all that Raven stuff on. Yeah. It was all blacks and ravens and whatnot. Yeah. Secret Disney supervillain, guys. It explains why when I sing, birds come, or whatever that is.
That's not entirely wrong.
Yeah, I don't have to sing. Birds just fucking love me.
So anyway, this one is an invocation to Persephone. So you can use this if you want to invoke Persephone, either to just sort of like worship and spend time with her, or if you would like her assistance with a particular thing. To begin with like anything, you're going to sort of get in your little magical zone. So like clear your mind, light some incense, or do some candles, or whatever it is that you want to do. And when you're ready, say, Persephone, goddess of spring, queen of the underworld, I call upon you. Show me how to honor the changing of the seasons with joy. Give me the courage and grace in the face of uncertainty. Help me honor the dead until I can take my place among them. And then at this point, you can provide an offering to her, do ritual work, meditate as desired. And then when you are done and you're ready to move on to whatever else it is that you're going to be doing, say, Persephone Despoina, maiden of flowers, mistress of curses, I thank you. Nice, simple invocation to Persephone.
Quick and simple invocation right there. You know?
Yeah.
I like it. It's
yeah.
Good. It's good.
So the next one is sort of like another all-purpose Persephone type of thing. And this one's a little bit kitchen witchy. So this one's partially a spell and partially a recipe. That kind of stuff is super fun and I really dig it. This sort of thing is really, really great for people who are in the broom closet. And that's because all you're really doing is just making a recipe.
Or just busy and like... Yeah. You know, like, I feel like there's kind of two interpretations of how you, like, accomplish any of this, like, ritualistic kind of a thing. And certainly one of them is, like, setting aside time and doing, like, a big thing about stuff. But also sometimes it's just, like, little everyday shit.
Yeah.
Or, like, kitchen witchery is a solid example of just, just... sprinkling a little magic into your everyday life, you know?
Yeah, really.
It's man, that sounds so douchey to say out loud. But like that's just like that's I don't know, that's just the way it is. I guess I don't really think about it as like an active task.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm also like strongly out of the broom closet or whatever.
I mean, we do have a podcast where we talk into
we do have a podcast. Stuff. Yeah.
And we're also sitting in front of our giant altar.
Yeah.
For those of you
and we host
on
like
YouTube.
all of the blots. What are those called for you? Sabbats.
Festivals.
Sabbats, festivals. Like for our family, you know, in the before when like you could have humans near you and shit. And like yeah, so I guess it's kind of different for us.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a great way if you want to, again, like celebrate on the DL or like sprinkle a little magic into something. Or like if you're if your patron, whatever, goddess is Persephone, then like, you know, you could set aside time on a regular basis to do like a big thing. But you could also sprinkle these in or just like sprinkle these in like whatever. I mean, like for me, like I meditate, I don't know, a couple of times a week before I go to sleep ish. Sometimes like every day, and sometimes I forget for like a month because I'm forgetful.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's meditation in its like Zen nothingness state, and sometimes it's meditation in like a ritualistic state, and sometimes it's meditation about like a specific deity that like I don't know, whatever, just like flitted into my head all of a sudden in the middle of the day, and I'm like, I'm gonna meditate about this when I get home. So yeah, this is a great. Yeah. Both of these honestly are great ways to sort of like sprinkle a little magic.
Yeah. Also, I've said this in previous episodes. I don't say it every time, but when we when we tell you to say something, you don't necessarily have to say it out loud. You can just like say that in your mind.
Yeah.
Like in your
you need to get a megaphone and scream it at the top of a building into people's faces. No, don't do that. That's awful.
No. Let's not be those people.
Yeah.
So this one is
don't say things out loud unless you want to say things out loud. Like you can say it in your head. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And that works really well for if you're in the broom closet, or you just kind of like don't really want to be like out louding that sort of thing. Just
or it's like 1:30 in the morning and you finally remember that you wanted to meditate and everybody else in the house is asleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so this one is a pomegranate vinaigrette, and this one sort of honors Persephone. So this is another really great all-purpose one. So if you want to work with Persephone for a variety of different things or for anything in particular, you just want to feel a little bit more magical, this is a great option for it. And all of the ingredients in this have been optimized for their full witchy potential. So first, you're going to take a half a cup of pomegranate juice, and we use pomegranate for wealth in this spell. So when you're adding things to, when you're doing this spell, you're going to say pomegranate for wealth. The next thing is 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. That is to block the evil eye. The next, you're going to use a teaspoon of orange peel for happiness, a teaspoon of honey for attraction, a half a teaspoon rosemary for honoring the dead, a half a teaspoon of thyme for courage, a pinch of mint. This is optional. I'll talk about that when we talk about correspondences, why that's optional. A pinch of mint for luck, and 3 tablespoons olive oil for protection. And of course, salt and pepper to taste. Salt being a thing that cleanses and purifies, and pepper being something that speeds up the results of your spell.
Yeah, and salt protects.
Yeah,
cleanses
and
purifies and protects.
Exactly. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these ingredients and you're going to add all of them except for the vinegar and the olive oil into a small pot, saying the name of the ingredient and its magical property as you add it. You'll then heat this on low for about 10 minutes. You don't want it to boil. You just kind of want to heat it up a little bit. The heat helps all of the flavors and everything to just sort of like be fully expressed. So you don't have to wait for stuff to steep. It was absurd. So once you've heated it for 10 minutes or so, or until fragrant, turn off your heat and add your vinegar. You don't really want the vinegar to necessarily boil off. You want to keep that in there. And then once this mixture has cooled completely, add your olive oil.
Yeah.
Keep it in a sealed bottle or jar, probably label that for safety, and shake it before each use, and then use this vinaigrette on anything you want. Vinaigrettes aren't just used for salads, although you can absolutely do this.
Chicken breast vinaigrette?
Yeah, just pour vinaigrette on chicken breast. It's literally what I had for dinner.
Yeah.
You can also pour it over any sort of microwaved or steamed vegetables.
Yep.
That's really good.
Yep.
You can, it's fall right now, y'all. So if you're into the pumpkin butternut squash train, you can take roasted pumpkin or butternut squash and dip it in this vinaigrette and then eat it. Delicious. And you can also use vinaigrette on top of rice.
Yeah.
That is one of my personal favorite things, vinaigrette on rice.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, if you left the vinegar out of this and the oil out of this, you could use all of these ingredients just as one of those, like, pot smell things, whatever.
Yeah, you could also do this as a simmer pot and just not eat it. You could also...
Don't simmer vinegar. That's
don't simmer vinegar. You don't need
You're
that
not doing
in your
that.
life.
Don't do that. Yeah, what I would argue is that you're just trying to get these to be fragrant in the pot. So, like, I would almost like get them until they're fragrant in the pot, and this is totally dependent on your stove. Like, it might take 10 minutes. It might take 3 minutes. Right, like that's 100% a process thing.
We have those 2 burners on the same stove.
Yeah. So right, and then once it's like fragrant, I would put it into a separate vessel. What with to add the vinegar and then inevitably the oil.
Yeah, you
just
can
because the
absolutely do
metal
that.
of your pot is going to retain heat for a lot longer, and you want those like flavor components, seeds and such. You want them to be warm, and then when you put like a cold liquid in them, that thermal exchange is gonna like kind of lock the fragrance in for those things.
Yeah. Another variation or way to use this is if you want to use this on like fruits, you absolutely can. I recommend you omit the vinegar and you either omit entirely or cut down on the olive oil, because who wants an oily melon chunk?
Yeah,
that sounds gross. But this is really great on a fruit salad if you omit the vinegar and the olive oil. So there's a lot of places you can take this vinaigrette.
Yeah, totally.
So that does it for the 2 spells, and we've got correspondences. correspondi. So we're just going to run through the highlights of these real quick. With the spells as well as other information, you will find full versions of all of this stuff in the Book of Shadows. So there is more information there than we are going to read here, because this is not a podcast where I just like read a list of things.
Yeah, we're not trying to bore you with like lists of stuff. But it is available in the Book Shadows pages, and obviously, like, if you ever have a question, just like reach out, and we're more than willing to help.
Yeah. So Persephone is, again, goddess of curses, the dead, fertility. She is also called upon for overcoming trauma. So if you have any sort of shadow work or trauma that you want to go and like try to fix mentally, then this is a good place to do it. Of course, in conjunction with a therapist. We're not a doctor. Please don't take our advice and sue us.
Yeah.
She's also a goddess of rebirth, the underworld, and again, a common patron goddess for those with bipolar or other mental things. The animals associated with her are butterfly and deer. And I mean, I guess you could probably say pig, but they're not really associated with her. They're just sort of also there.
They're just associated with her dope parties, yo.
Yeah, pretty much. Her colors are black, green, and pink. For rocks, we're kind of looking at the same idea as the colors there. So black onyx, green tourmaline, obsidian are all pretty good ones for her. As far as plants go, you can... there's a ton of different resources and people who swear by using mint when working with Persephone. So this one's kind of tricky. So mint is, in the Greek tradition, named after Minth, who was like a sea nymph, I think, and she is also sort of part of the Eleusinian mysteries, but like not really. But Minth was Hades' lover before Persephone, and when Persephone came on the scene, Minth was like, "Girl, I'm way better than you are, and he's still getting with me, and so you better just leave and go back to the above places." And Persephone was super angry, or Demeter was super angry, depending on the myth you read, and Minth was trampled to death and then turned into a plant. So it would seem that mint is not something that would be naturally associated with Persephone, especially after talking about avoiding pomegranates for Demeter, but everything that I can see, Persephone generally enjoys mint. But if you personally feel that maybe you don't want to give her mint, that's fine. As another thing, the part of mint and minth being in the Eleusinian mysteries is that it was used to flavor an ancient Greek drink called the kykeon, which was made of fermented water and barley, and that was the hallucinogen that they drank.
Yeah. What? Okay. Well, you can't ferment water because water ain't got nothing.
Well, I mean,
water.
Fermented water and barley drink.
Yeah. Because the way that you have that written and the way that you said it sounds like we're taking fermented water, which is not a thing.
Maybe we are,
and then adding
water.
Grain to it. Which...
No, we're fermenting barley in a very specific manner with water, and then adding mint as a flavoring to achieve that stuff. Please don't try it at home, guys.
Yeah. Ooh. Don't. I guess fermented barley water is just a really complicated and dumb way to say the word beer.
No, it was definitely not beer.
But what they're making is not the kind of beer that as a brewer I make.
They weren't even actually making beer. They were taking barley that had been infected with a very particular fungus.
Mold, but yes.
Yeah. And
yeah. Oh, I know exactly what they're talking about. When you say fermented barley and hallucinations, yes, I understand. Yeah, 100%. I understand what that is. That's stupid dangerous.
Yeah.
Do not do that. You know what?
Yeah.
Have a beer. Be okay with that.
Yeah.
So you want to make it fancy? Crush up some mint in that shit.
If you want to use mint, you absolutely can. But again, you don't have to really. It depends on how your personal relationship with that particular item and with this particular person and the mythology behind it goes. So follow your headcanon. And don't force others to follow your headcanon as well. So other plants that are associated with Persephone would be lily, parsley, poppy, rose, and really any flowering plant. As for food, she's really into cheese, dark chocolate, pomegranates, pork, and anything almond or vanilla flavoring. So what I took away from this is Persephone is really into like charcuterie plates.
She's into like charcuterie plates and shit that may or may not be poisonous. Because what is it? Bitter almond is that like
bitter almond
like
is
that stone fruit arsenic flavor.
Yeah,
that's super fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh
She's
my God. Yeah.
She knows how to party.
Don't do shit with stone fruit. Like I know you'd have to eat like 1,000. Don't even fucking risk it.
Don't
right?
do it. Don't
be
do
food safe. We didn't talk about fire this time. I'm gonna bring it up anyway, just so you guys can have a drink. Be fire
the other
safe.
Two parts of the drinking game.
Fucking also, right? Food safe, fire safe. Really, I mean, I think the secret should be just be safe. But since we have to explain that like ad nauseum to people, be safe. I was wondering why pomegranate didn't show up under plants, because that's a plant. Like I get that it's a food, but it's just a plant that you can eat. Like why is mint not in foods, but it's in plants?
You know what? It's arbitrary.
No, I get that it's arbitrary.
Yeah,
that's obvious.
Because
it's
for
just
me,
it's one of those
plants
things.
And the food is like a hard one too, because I'm just like,
plants are plants,
do I
and food is
draw the
plants
line?
you can eat and meat.
Yeah.
Right, like you can't eat a lily. You can eat some lilies, I think.
No, I don't think you can.
No, you can't eat any lilies.
I think they're
you can't eat any lilies.
poisonous.
You can eat some flowers. I've definitely had flower salad.
Yeah.
You can eat some.
You can
flowers.
also eat parts of a poppy or rose.
I don't think what you do to a poppy is eating it, and I don't think that parts of and you can
poppy
is the
seed.
thing.
You literally eat lemon poppy seed something or other like almost every day.
I was thinking drugs, but okay.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. I was thinking drugs.
So yeah, the line really there is just arbitrary. But anyway, as far as food goes, basically I learned that Persephone is really into charcuterie plates.
I'm pretty okay with that.
So, I mean, like, get with that. And then other miscellaneous things that she's associated with would be sheaves of grain and torches. She's commonly shown holding a torch to, like, light the underworld up, basically. Because she's lit. She's bringing the lit. I got nothing. I'm going to stop.
Did that feel like an old person using the word lit around you? Because that's what it felt like to me. And granted, I'm old and I don't really use the word lit because it makes my skin hurt, but you know what I'm talking about.
No, I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
So that's correspondences and that's Persephone.
Yeah.
Deep dive. So we had a lot of really interesting stuff.
Persephone's a very interesting deity with like a very interesting history, and again, there's a lot of just like when we were talking about the kidnapping mythos. What are you calling that?
Abduction
mythos. Very fancy sounding, but like again, it's that thing where it's like, are you approaching this from the like she was just took, or are you approaching it from the like her and Hades had like a secret love affair, and then she was like, "What's up? Can I go down there with you?" And he's just like, "For a little bit, but we gotta like not tell your mom because she's crazy." And then come to find out she in fact crazy. So like so again, and I feel like especially in recent years we're reinterpreting, or maybe the better way is like properly interpreting a bunch of like Greek myths that we were kind of taught because of like movies in the 30s and 40s.
Well, not just that, but also also a lot of the
ancient playwrights making shit way more gangster. A lot of the
translations for the myths and a lot of the popularity of Greek myths in the late Renaissance and Victorian times were very, very interested in the R word and abduction and really that negative side of things.
Well, and they're Christianized versions of the myths, right? And like if Hades is the whatever of the underworld, then he has to be like a bad guy 100% of the time, all the time.
Also,
you know, it's sort of like that weird Lucifer Morning Star is always like fucking super hot in statues, and you're like, what?
You're like, I don't know if I like this.
Going on with this?
But some of it is also a translation thing. Like, we're understanding that certain terms that they would have used in that time maybe mean something slightly different than what we in modern times would have them mean. But also, there's context associated with it and who's telling the story.
Well, and the fucking telephone game. I mean, guys, remember the telephone game? We've all been children. Most of us have been children. All of us have played that. So, like, you know, there's going to be, like, logic drift and such like that. I mean, you know, I always want to bring up and we haven't done a podcast on this, but we should do a podcast on Medusa.
It's on the list.
Yeah, I know it's on the list.
Yeah.
But, like, that to me is, like, the biggest one in the, like, there is a period of time when, like, Medusa's just like an evil Gorgon monster, and now now we're like, wait a minute, we read this story. That's a fucking dumb interpretation. This is way darker, way darker than we were initially told it as a child. Yeah. What the heck's going on with this?
Yeah. Well, and then we were like, is it darker? The last thing about that sort of interpretation thing that I want to kind of touch on is, in the current times, in the current apocalypses that we live in, like, it's very aware to most people that news outlets and social media outlets are pushing content that is inflammatory, that is all of
actively
of that
trying
kind
to
of
start
stuff.
shit with you.
That saying that, like, there no news is good news, right?
I don't think that's the thing that you're thinking about. What that
bad
means,
news sells. Now I'm doing that Boondocks things where I'm, like, combining two different sayings.
Yeah. This is the thing, right?
Anyway,
if your relationship is one way, that's gangster, and if somebody else's relationship is a different way with this particular thing, that's also gangster. Don't be a dick.
Yes. To sum that up.
Right? But, like, let's TLDR this.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a dick, but also, like, our interpretations are, you know, like, naturally different.
Yes. Really what I was trying to get at is maybe back then when these things were written by their original authors in the ancient Greek times, they were kind of maybe saying things in a negative light to get more people to listen to their talks or to read their stuff. So definitely keep that, you know, that's a thing now. That's been a thing always, so keep that in mind. Anyways, we're done with thank you for coming to our TED Talk on being a dick about that stuff.
Yeah, don't be a dick. Jesus, man.
So the next episode, I'm really super excited for.
Yeah.
Samhain.
Yeah, Samhain.
Yeah.
You know, I pronounce that in my head Samhain every single time so I can remember to spell it, because if I were to spell the word Samhain, it would not be the way that it's spelled.
Well, I can tell you right now there are multiple different ways to spell it.
Oh, I know, but yeah, there's only one way that, like, counts. You know, so
yeah. So we're gonna
as somebody whose name is Jonathan and is spelled in one of the ways that doesn't count.
That is true.
Let me tell you what I just recently had somebody was like, wait a minute. It was Big Joe, in fact, was like, wait a minute. It's Jon, and I'm just like, yeah, but only in John. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, oh, honey, oh, cow. Yeah. I'm gonna explain it to
Whenever
you why I spell my name
full name
dumb.
out, I have to like look at something to verify. And we've been married for a little while.
I can spell my name. I mean, for the most part.
So the next episode is going to be Samhain / Halloween. So I'm pretty excited for that. That's going to be a fun one, and that one's going to come out right before, like the week before Halloween, so that we can. Get you some good info to kind of use for your own personal celebrations. Yeah. And also on the horizon, we've got our 1-year anniversary of this podcast coming up.
Yeah, podcast anniversary.
Exciting.
So we're going to have Q and or A. We are going to endeavor to do it live. Man, I don't have time to figure that out, but I'll figure it out. I mean, I figured out how to do that live chat. I figured out how to do that live chat. We will still on the fly. So
definitely be recording that and
it's gonna happen. So whether you attend that live, and if we're gonna do it live, it'll be on YouTube Live.
Yeah.
Just because that's definitely going to be the easiest way for me to do that. So if we do it live, like, cool, we'll do it live there. And even if whether we do it live or not, if you have any questions, submit them. You can comment those questions and I will save them on the YouTube video. You can go to our website, nerdjive.com, and there's a
There's like a contact us
form
button.
that you can fill out that I set up a bajillion years ago, and you can just put the questions in there. You can also just DM us on social media. Speaking of social media, follow us on social media. I'm at nerdjive everywhere. She's at Goddess Jules everywhere. It's linked in all of the dibbly doos, so figure that shit out. We have the website, which is nerdjive.com. I've been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Stay magical, folks.
Yeah.
No, can't see it on that side.